So we're back with a relatively impromptu video, obviously. We're talking FF7, we're talking Ever Crisis. So I woke up just a little bit ago and rolled over, picked up the phone, and had an email from like an hour ago at the time that said, Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis is available. I was like, what the shit? And it's like, I've never unlocked my phone so damn fast. Pulled it up, and you can access the game, but you can't play it yet. Like, you can get to the title screen, you can tap it to like try to start the game, and it just brings up a message saying, wait longer, essentially. So right here's the title screen. We've seen this already a bunch of times, nothing too crazy. So this is the message that pops up whenever you try to fire up the game that says, now preparing for the official release. This is a message from the Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis management team. We're currently preparing for the official game release. Service is planned to start September 7th PDT. Please wait just a little longer, and we thank you for your patience. Begins September 6th, 2023, 4 a.m. The notice is a little bit confusing because they say that the game's going to launch on September 7th PDT, which is West Coast time, but then below that it says begin September 6th at 4 a.m. And it's like, what? I don't know what that bottom part's about exactly. I'm not sure. A lot about this game is going to be based on like PDT West Coast time, because there was another message we can look at here in a second that came out at 3 a.m. or at least the notice says 3 a.m. and 3 a.m. West Coast time is 5 a.m. for me, which is about the exact time I got the email saying that the game was available to download. So the other notice says, for those waiting for the official launch on September 7th, thank you very much for downloading Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis. This is a message from the management team. The official game service is set to launch on September 7th. We're so glad you're here, but we must ask you to wait a little longer. Keep up to date with the latest information regarding the start of the game via our official Twitter account. I ain't saying that shit. As of right now, none of these other menu options technically work. Event info, known issues are not available currently. The information just has this notice, and the topics have links to the Twitter account and the official website. And that's kind of it for now. I don't exactly know when this game's launching yet, other than the fact that they specifically mentioned PDT. September 7th PDT is when the game's launching, so that seems to be maybe the time zone to look towards. But we still don't have an actual time yet, so I don't exactly know. Plus, maybe that notice we looked at had a bit of a typo, and it was supposed to say like September 7th at 4 a.m. is when it begins, as in like September 7th, 4 a.m. PDT time is when the game's launching, which would be like 6 a.m. for me. 7 a.m. if you're on like the East Coast, and like I don't know if you live in other time zones what it would be exactly, but maybe that's a possibility. Maybe it's like something to think about. I don't know. Actually not it though. We have some more Ever Crisis related stuff. We have translations coming out from like a weekly Famitsu featuring like Ichikawa, Nomura, Nojima, and it gives us some decent info of some things to expect with Ever Crisis. One of them being Sephiroth's Masamune. Like we're gonna know why we're not seeing that in the trailers. That's pretty cool. So let's just read over this really quickly. And we'll just read over Audra's translation that says, FF7 Ever Crisis has a dev interview in this week's Famitsu, and Ichikawa, Nomura, and Nojima mentioned the following. Story arcs will be updated one chapter at a time each month. At launch, the stories that will be available are OG FF7 arc, Crisis Core arc, and First Soldier arc. The First Soldier story will eventually explore the reason why Sephiroth Masamune does not appear in the trailer. Character stories shown in FF7 Ever Crisis allow audiences to understand the character's feelings even more so than when they played Remake or Rebirth. Doubtful. And they plan to include how Tifa met Avalanche, which was in the light novel. By including this episode, it would change the weight of what Tifa was going through when she cried after they lost Avalanche. For starters, I gotta call some absolute bullshit on like Ever Crisis is gonna make us understand like characters' feelings more than like Remake and or Rebirth. Like they're already saying that this game is gonna give us more for characters than Rebirth, which isn't even out yet. And I'm just like, no, it's a mobile game. Like it's a pretty linear mobile game in terms of storytelling. Like nah. Getting to see the backstory of like Tifa meeting Avalanche, I'm assuming that's from Trace of Two Paths. I haven't read the book myself, so that's kind of cool. But obviously, like getting some story on Sephiroth's sword, right? Sephiroth's Masamune, like that's what I've been saying in like multiple videos recently, right? Like I knew that was gonna be a thing. I knew the fact that they're putting so much emphasis on this different design sword or different sword in general. Like there was gonna be some sort of like story or origin story for his Masamune, and it seems like there's the confirmation of that. Now, regardless of whether or not his Masamune has like actual magical powers, like I personally think it does, like it's irrelevant. Like them giving us an origin story for the sword, this is literally like a childhood, like fan theory, childhood fantasy fulfilled. Like ever since I mentioned in a recent video, ever since I read the booklet that says like he has the sword that only he can wield, I've had this like magical sword design thing in my mind. I never had an idea for where he would have ever got the sword, but the fact that we're going to get that with Ever Crisis, like this is 26 years in the making. This is childhood David getting what he wants. The other shit about like, you know, chapter updates per month and like which stores are going to be available, we've known for like ever. Like we've known the chapter update thing since like the game was revealed, like 2 years ago almost at this point or whatever the fuck. And I think the closed beta test had all three, you know, Crisis Core, First Soldier, FF7, right? And we see them all throughout the trailer, so it's pretty obvious that those were going to be available at launch. Actually, a live update as we're recording right now. They just dropped a tweet, quote tweeting the release date tweet they did a little while back, talking about the launch of the game. And it's still kind of vague. Fuck. So they say, officially launching tomorrow, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis is available for pre-download. Get ready. Official service will start tomorrow, September 7th, PDT. Still no time. If you go into the replies too, like, that's all people were talking about is, like, what time? What time is this? What time in the UK? Do y'all have an exact time yet? Like, everybody's want to know what time. Like, why can't they just say, dude? Why can't you say, like, midnight PDT or 1 a.m. PDT or fucking 4 a.m. PDT? Just, why do we not have a time? The game is less than 24 hours away at this point, presumably. And we don't know when we can play it yet. I don't understand. Like, maybe it means midnight PDT, right? So, like, as soon as it rolls over to September 7th, midnight, and West Coast time, then the game goes live, which would be like 2 a.m. for me, 3 a.m. if you're on the East Coast, and whatever your time zone is beyond that. Maybe. But it's like, still, why don't they just say that? Like, why can't they just give us a time frame to let us know when we can play this shit? Also announced an official Discord if you're interested. Actually, another live update as I'm recording here. It seems like whenever you fire up the game and it gives you that time that says like September 6th and then a time, for me it's 4 a.m. That seems to be different per person because there's somebody I was talking with on Twitter and theirs says 10 a.m., which is obviously a big difference from 4 a.m. So maybe that's when the game's launching for you, like it based on your time zone. So maybe I'm getting it 4 a.m., which is the case. They'd put the game coming out at like 6 p.m. Japan time based on like the time differences between me and Japan. Which kind of conflicts with the previous video based on that tweet we looked at that said it was coming out at nighttime in Japan. I don't think most people would consider 6 p.m. nighttime, but again, it wasn't an auto-translate thing, so maybe it wasn't quite accurate. I think that'll more or less be the video, my dudes. My initial plan with the video was just to make a video talking about the game being available, like for preload, pre-download. If you hadn't done that yet, if you haven't pre-registered, you can get that out of the way for the day. Speaking of which, the game's different sizes, I think, depending on if you have probably Android or iPhone. I think somebody mentioned that the game was like 5 gigabytes, but for me, it's only like 1.5 on my phone, on iPhone. So it's not that big on the iPhone, at least. Maybe Android's a lot bigger. But then I figured also, like, once we're already recording, I was like, let's just go ahead and just take all the information that's out there right now this morning and just kind of cover it all into one video as well. Anyways, that'll be the video, my dudes. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search networks in the description below. Follow me for _White. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.